Anna had always thought she had left the forest behind the wild, untamed woods where she had once shared a silent bond with a Wolf whose amber eyes had seen deeper into her soul than any human ever could. But as the years pulled her further from the child she once was, and the world demanded more of her than she could give, the forest called her back, this time. It wasn't just the pull of the trees, nor the memory of a childhood friend, it was the ache of something she had lost. Something she had once been a part of, but hadn't known how to keep. And as she stepped into the familiar clearing, with the wind carrying the scent of pine and earth, Anna realized she had never truly left, but neither had the Wolf. Mythos had waited. And the forest, with all its secrets, was waiting still. The first time Anna wandered into the forest, she was no more than a girl of 7. The meadow that stretched behind her home had always felt like the border of her little world. But beyond that, the forest called to her, mysterious and full of secrets. Her father, a sturdy man with hands rough from years of labor, had warned her many times to stay close to the house. "The woods are dangerous, Anna," he would say, his voice thick with the weight of his own experiences. "You don't know what's out there." But Anna didn't quite understand. She didn't feel fear when she looked into the forest. She felt curiosity, a magnetic pull that she couldn't resist. The trees seemed to reach out, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers from the past, beckoning her to step closer. The world beyond was something she could only imagine in stories. Her grandmother had told her tales of creatures hidden in shadows and magic lingering in the air like morning mist. To Anna, the forest wasn't a place of danger. It was a place where something else lived, something alive in a way the house and the meadow couldn't be. It was untamed, and there was comfort in that wildness. One day, as the sun stretched low in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground, Anna's curiosity overcame her father's warnings. She left the meadow and ventured toward the edge of the trees, her tiny feet crunching on the leaves that carpeted the forest floor. The world beyond her home felt different, darker, quieter, but in a way that made her feel more alive. Anna pressed on, deeper into the woods. The trees seemed to lean toward her as if watching her every step. The air grew thick with the scent of pine and earth. Every twig that snapped beneath her feet sounded loud, but the sound didn't seem to disturb the stillness. The forest was alive, breathing, but in its own secret rhythm. She had always imagined it as a quiet place of whispers, and now, as she walked, it felt like those whispers were calling her name. It was there, amid the undergrowth, that she first saw him. At first, he was nothing more than a shadow, a figure moving with the fluidity of a breeze through the trees. His form was almost hidden by the dense foliage, but Anna could see enough to know he was something different. His fur was as dark as the night sky, blending into the shadows, but his eyes, those eyes glowed with an unsettling intelligence. Bright like twin amber flames? A Wolf, Anna thought, but there was something else in his gaze. It wasn't the fierce, hungry stare of a wild animal. It was calm, almost knowing, as if he understood her. Anna froze in her tracks, watching him. Her breath caught in her throat as his eyes locked with hers. Neither of them moved, not for a long while. The Wolf didn't growl or snarl, nor did he flee. He simply stood there, his gaze unwavering, as if watching her in return. It felt like a connection, an unspoken understanding that stretched between them like the fabric of the forest itself. Anna's heart raced, but it wasn't from fear. It was wonder. She felt a strange pull, an irresistible urge to go closer. Slowly, carefully, she took a step forward. The Wolf didn't flinch. Instead, he backed away, his movement so fluid that he seemed to melt into the shadows. Anna's pulse quickened, a wave of confusion washing over her. She didn't understand why, but something deep inside told her to follow. She had never seen anything like him before, and yet there was something familiar in the way he moved, something that made her feel as though she already knew him, as though he belonged to her and she to him. For a brief fleeting moment, Anna felt as if the entire world had stopped time, the forest, even the wind had paused. There was only the two of them standing there in the silence, recognizing something that no one else could see. And in that moment, Anna knew. This was just the beginning. The forest had called her, and she had answered. Anna returned to the forest the very next day. She couldn't explain it, but something in her chest pulled her back. The memory of the Volv, the way he had stood there, those amber eyes filled with a strange understanding, refused to leave her. She needed to know him more, to understand what had happened between them in that fleeting moment. Her father had not noticed her absence. He was busy with the barn, and her mother had always been lost in her own world, humming quietly as she worked. Anna took her small satchel, packed with bits of bread and fruit, and quietly slipped past the house and into the woods. The trees embraced her as she stepped into the familiar quiet of the forest. But today it felt different. It was as though the woods themselves were holding their breath, waiting. The air smelled sweeter, more alive, as if it knew that something important was about to unfold. Anna felt it too, a quiet anticipation that she could not shake. She walked deeper, her feet crunching softly in the underbrush, her eyes searching the shadows for the Volv. It felt like he was out there somewhere, watching her, waiting for her to come back. As she moved through the trees, the forest seemed to open up before her, revealing a hidden clearing she hadn't seen before. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. And there, in the center of it all, he appeared, Mythos. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, his coat a dark, shining black that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. The Volv's eyes met hers, and in them she saw no fear, no anger, only something softer, something almost human in their depths. It was the same Volv from yesterday, the one she couldn't stop thinking about, but today he wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was there, present, as if he had been waiting for her. Anna held her breath, unsure of what to do. The stillness between them stretched on for what felt like an eternity. The air seemed thick with the unspoken connection between them. Then, slowly, Mythos took a step toward her. His movements were careful, calculated, as if he were gauging her intentions, watching for any sign of hesitation. Anna didn't move. She wanted to, but something inside her kept her still. The Volv had not approached her with hunger or anger. His pace was slow, deliberate, as though he, too, was wondering what would happen next. Her heart beat louder in her chest, but the fear she might have expected to feel never came. Instead, she felt a pull, one that urged her to reach out, to step closer to him. She took a small step forward and then another, until she was standing only a few feet away from the Volv. Mythos tilted his head slightly, observing her, his amber eyes never leaving hers. There was no growl, no sign of aggression, only the same calm presence that had drawn her to him the day before. Tentatively, she reached out her hand, her fingers trembling slightly. Mythos remained still. The air between them hummed with energy, as though this moment was something more than a simple meeting. Slowly, with the utmost gentleness, Anna brushed her fingers against the side of his head. His fur was softer than she had imagined, warm and smooth, yet strong. The moment her skin touched him, something shifted. The air around them seemed to breathe, the world beyond the forest fading into the background. It was as if, in that touch, they both understood. Something unspoken, something ancient that only the wild and the untamed could know. Mythos didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned into her touch, closing his eyes as if savoring the connection. Anna's heart swelled, a strange sense of peace settling over her. She had never known anything like this before, this unspoken bond between them, a silent understanding that seemed to stretch far beyond words. For the first time, Anna understood that the Volv wasn't just any creature of the forest. He was something more, something older, something meant to be. She smiled softly, the weight of her own realization settling on her. Mythos, she whispered, naming him, just as her grandmother had once taught her the language of the old world. The name felt right, like a word she had always known but had only just remembered. The Volv looked at her, and in that gaze Anna saw something beyond the forest, beyond the confines of the world she had known. She felt, for the first time in her young life, that the forest had chosen her to be a part of something deeper, something greater. And in that moment, Anna knew that her bond with Mythos would last forever, a secret shared only between them, hidden in the heart of the ancient woods. As the sun began to dip below the trees, Casting the forest in a golden glow, Mythos turned, and without a sound, disappeared back into the shadows. But Anna wasn't afraid. Instead, she felt an aching, quiet certainty he would return. The forest would always call her back. And so would Mythos. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Anna continued to visit the forest as often as she could, sneaking away from the house whenever she could get a moment of solitude. Each time Mythos was there, waiting for her, always in the shadows, always just out of reach, but never far. He had become a silent companion, and their bond deepened in ways Anna couldn't explain, but always felt her father, though still wary of the woods, had stopped asking her about her excursions. The meadow and the house were enough for him, and Anna had learned to slip away without comment. It was in the forest that she felt truly at home, where time seemed to slow down and the noise of the world outside faded to nothing. As she grew older, Anna's visits became less frequent. The demands of school pulled her away from the woods. Then there were friends girls from the village who invited her to play, to gossip, to share secrets that didn't belong in the forest. At first, the tug to leave the woods felt like a mere distraction. It was the excitement of new faces, new experiences. The laughter of her friends seemed to fill a space inside her that the silence of the forest never could. She forgot, for a time, the way Mythos's eyes had watched her, the bond they had shared. By the time Anna was 12, the visits became rare. The weight of her growing world seemed heavier than the pull of the forest. The other children at school made fun of her odd tendency to wander off alone. They called her strange, too quiet, too distant. She learned to smile at their jokes and pretend it didn't bother her. But deep down, she missed the peace of the woods. She missed the quiet companionship of Mythos, who had never asked her to be anything other than what she was. Her family moved when Anna turned 16, and with that change, the forest seemed farther away than it ever had before. The town they moved to was bigger, busier, full of new faces and new responsibilities. The woods she had known for so long now seemed like a distant memory, something she couldn't return to, even if she wanted to. The drive was too long, the hours too precious. Life in the city demanded attention, and soon Anna found herself swept into its currents: studies, friends, part-time jobs. She thought of the forest only in passing, a brief flash of childhood in the middle of the relentless pace of growing up. Still, something lingered, quietly tucked away. On sleepless nights, when the city's noise became too loud, Anna would find herself thinking of the forest, of the way the trees seemed to cradle her, of the way Mythos's amber eyes had always understood her, even when no one else had. But these thoughts came and went like dreams, fleeting and easy to forget. Her mother's illness brought her back to the small town when Anna was 28. The familiar streets felt colder now, but her mother's frailty pulled her back home, just as the weight of time had pulled her away from it. Anna cared for her mother, helping her in ways that felt natural, though it was difficult to face the reality of aging. She had never thought much about it before, but as she took care of her mother, now frail and small, once so full of life, she began to realize how time had claimed her too. It was during this time that the memory of Mythos came rushing back. One evening, after a long day of caring for her mother, Anna found herself standing on the porch of their house, staring out at the edge of the meadow. The sun had long disappeared, leaving only the soft glow of twilight in its wake. The forest stood there like a wall of shadows, just beyond the fading light. Without thinking, Anna turned and grabbed her coat. The instinct of years passed, pulling her out of the house. The old path to the woods was still there, though it was more overgrown than she remembered. She hadn't walked it in years, but the way was as clear as ever, as if the forest had waited for her return. Her heart beat with a mix of excitement and trepidation as she stepped into the woods once more. The trees were older now, their trunks thick and their branches reaching out in a canopy above her head, but the air still smelled the same, pine and earth. The quiet hum of life. As Anna moved deeper into the forest, she thought about the changes in her life. The friends she had made, the relationships that had come and gone, the years that had flown by. She thought about how much she had grown, How far she had come from the little girl who had wandered these woods with a quiet companion who had never judged her. And she wondered, was Mythos still there? Had the forest waited for her as she had waited for it? Her breath quickened as she rounded the familiar bend. The clearing was up ahead. The same clearing where she had first seen him, Mythos, but this time, when she stepped into the clearing, the space was empty, the shadows stretched long across the earth, but there was no dark-eyed Volf waiting for her, no silent companion to greet her with those intelligent, knowing eyes. Anna stood there, her heart pounding with a sudden, intense sorrow. The forest felt different, emptier. She couldn't understand why, but something told her the Volf had gone. Maybe he had waited for her all these years, but now he was no longer there, and yet, as she stood in the clearing, she felt something, a presence, soft, familiar, like the echo of a memory. It wasn't the Volf himself, but the feeling of him lingered, like a soft whisper carried on the wind. Mythos was gone, but the forest still held his essence. And Anna understood he hadn't disappeared. He had been a part of the forest, and the forest would always be a part of her. And perhaps in time he would return. The woods had their secrets, after all, and some bonds, no matter how silent, never truly break. The days passed in a haze of hospital visits and late-night shifts caring for her mother. Anna had thrown herself into the routine, her world now defined by the quiet urgency of responsibility. The town had never felt more distant, nor had her childhood seemed so far removed from the person she had become. But there was a part of her that couldn't escape the pull, the call of the forest, beckoning from the edge of her memories. She hadn't meant to return, not really. Yet the ache in her chest grew with each passing day, a silent whisper urging her toward the trees. One evening, when her mother had finally settled into a quiet sleep, Anna found herself standing at the threshold of the house, her hand resting on the doorframe. The night air was cool, thick with the scent of rain. The stars above were obscured by clouds, the world around her feeling like a still life. Held in a moment of suspended time, her eyes drifted to the dark expanse of the forest beyond the meadow. For the first time since her return, the trees didn't seem as imposing, but rather inviting, almost waiting. A sudden impulse took hold of her, a need to see it, to be there again. Without thinking, she stepped outside, the gravel crunching beneath her shoes as she made her way toward the familiar path leading into the woods. The breeze that touched her face was cool, but it felt warm in the way a long-lost memory might familiar. But layered with time, the walk felt both strange and comforting. Every step seemed to echo her own quiet longing. It had been years, but the forest had not forgotten her. She could almost hear the soft rustling of leaves in the distance, like the forest itself was whispering her name. As she neared the edge of the woods, Anna felt the old tug in her chest, that same pull from childhood, like an invisible thread tying her to something deeper. She could feel the presence of the trees wrapping around her, surrounding her as if they remembered her, too. The clearing was not far now. The closer she got, the more her heart raced, a mix of excitement and fear flooding her veins. She hadn't expected it to feel this powerful, this urgent. The forest was alive, breathing around her, the air heavy with something beyond the familiar scent of pine and earth. It was the same forest she had known, but tonight it felt different. Almost sacred. When she finally stepped into the clearing, her breath caught. It was quiet, more than quiet, it was still. No rustle of wind, no hum of life, just a thick, suffocating silence. Anna stood there for a long moment, scanning the shadows, but there was no movement. No sign of Emotive. The clearing looked unchanged. The trees stood tall and unwavering, their branches twisting into the dark sky. The ground was still littered with old pine needles and fallen leaves. And yet, despite the stillness, there was something almost electric in the air, something that made Anna's skin tingle. Mythos? Her voice came out softer than she expected, a whisper lost in the dark. She waited, her heart thumping painfully in her chest, hoping for some sign that he was there, just beyond her sight. But time stretched on, and the only thing that answered her was the wind stirring through the trees. Anna's eyes stung with the sudden weight of grief. She hadn't realized until this moment just how deeply she had missed him, how much of her soul had clung to the bond they had shared all those years ago. The Wolf hadn't just been a part of her childhood. He had been a part of her. "Where are you?" she whispered again, her voice trembling, and then, as if the forest itself had heard her plea, something shifted in the shadows, a soft, almost imperceptible rustle. A movement at the edge of the clearing. Anna froze, her breath catching. She couldn't see anything clearly, just the faint outline of something dark, something shifting beneath the cover of the trees. Her heart leaped into her throat, and her pulse quickened, and then there he was, Dada. At first, Anna thought her mind was playing tricks on her, that the years apart had distorted the memory of him. But as he stepped into the dim light, she knew it was him. His fur, once dark as midnight, was now graying at the edges, but his eyes, those amber eyes, still shone with that same haunting intelligence, the same knowing gaze that had captivated her when she was a little girl. He was thinner now, his body gaunt and fragile in a way that made Anna's heart ache. His coat, though still beautiful, lacked the vibrance it once had. The strength she remembered in his movements had faded, and he moved slowly, almost hesitantly. But even as his form seemed diminished, the air around him was charged with an ancient energy, as if he were still connected to the forest in a way that nothing else could be. For a moment, neither of them moved. Mythos stood just beyond the clearing, his gaze fixed on her, and Anna stood frozen, unable to speak. The years between them stretched like a chasm, but the connection, the pull was as strong as ever. Then, without a sound, Mythos took a step forward. Anna's breath caught. She reached out a hand, trembling, but the Wolf didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, he moved toward her, his steps slow, deliberate. The space between them felt sacred, like a quiet promise. As he neared, Anna knelt, her knees pressing against the cool earth, and when Mythos reached her, she laid her hand on his fur. The moment her fingers brushed against him, a wave of warmth flooded her chest. The bond she had once shared with him, silent, profound, deep, was still there. It had never left. And it wasn't just the bond of a girl and a Wolf, but something deeper, something older than time itself. Something that the forest, the earth, and the stars had woven into their very souls. Emotive leaned into her touch, his body relaxing beneath her hand, and for the first time in years, Anna felt the weight of the world, of all the years and changes fall away. It wasn't just a reunion. It was a return to something that had always been. And in that moment, Anna realized that the forest hadn't been waiting for her to return. It had been waiting for them both, for Mythos had always been a part of her, and now, in the stillness of the night, the forest was where they both truly belonged. The moon rose higher, casting its soft light across the clearing. The world seemed to fall away as Anna knelt in the quiet, her hand still resting gently on Mythos's graying fur. Time itself felt suspended in that moment. The world outside the forest, with its noise and its demands, seemed a distant echo, no more real than a forgotten dream. Here, in the heart of the woods, Anna and Mythos were together again, and nothing else mattered. As she touched him, she felt a tremor pass through his body, a subtle but unmistakable shift in his presence. His amber eyes, though clouded with age, still held the same depth of understanding. In them, Anna could see the forest, its ageless wisdom, its silent language, its untamed spirit. For a long moment, they simply existed in each other's company, the bond between them stretching effortlessly through the years. "Mythos," Anna whispered, her voice thick with emotion, as though she had only just remembered how to speak. The name, once so familiar, now tasted like the sweetness of home, of a place that had never really left her, but had merely been waiting. The Wolf's eyes softened, a silent acknowledgement of her presence. There was no rush, no urgency in the way he leaned into her touch, only a deep, quiet understanding, a recognition that transcended words. This was their time. The years apart had not diminished the connection between them. It had only deepened it, woven it into the very fabric of the earth. For a while, Anna sat there, her fingers still brushing through his fur, until the weight of the moment began to sink in. The reality of what she was witnessing, of what was happening, hit her all at once. "Mythos," she repeated, her voice barely audible. I thought I had lost you." The Wolf's body shifted slightly, a soft sigh escaping his chest as he gazed at her, his eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored her own. It was then that Anna realized he had never truly left. He had always been here, in the forest, just waiting for her to return. The forest had waited for them both. Anna's eyes filled with tears, the emotion too vast for words. How had she ever let the noise of the world pull her away? How had she let the weight of growing up overshadow the quiet truth of what she and Mythos had shared? She looked at him, at the strength still flickering in his form, even in his age, and understood that the bond between them was eternal. It was not bound by time, not shaped by the passing of years. "Why didn't you come for me?" Anna whispered, her voice thick with longing. The Wolf's gaze shifted toward the trees, the amber in his eyes glowing brighter under the moonlight. He didn't answer, of course. There were no words needed. In the language of the forest, of the ancient bond between them, there was no need for explanation. He had waited, just as she had waited for him. The wind stirred around them, carrying with it the familiar scent of pine and earth, the smell of home. The forest was alive in a way that only Anna could understand now. It wasn't just a place, it was a part of them, just as they were a part of it. The call of the wild was not a thing of fear. It was a whisper, a promise that one day the forest would always draw you back. Even when you thought you had left it behind. Anna took a deep breath, closing her eyes as she felt the weight of that truth. The world beyond had kept her busy, had pulled her away, but the forest had never stopped calling. It had never stopped waiting. "Do you still want me here?" she asked, her voice softer now, filled with vulnerability. Mythos's head tilted slightly, his amber eyes meeting hers, and in that moment she understood. It was not a matter of need or desire. It was something far simpler, far older. He had always wanted her there, just as she had always needed him. Their connection, forged long ago in the depths of this wild place, was not fragile. It was an enduring bond that even time could not sever. Anna stood slowly, wiping away the tears that had begun to fall freely down her cheeks. She reached out. Once more, this time resting both hands on Mythos's head, her forehead pressed gently to his. The touch was gentle, yet filled with all the unspoken words they had carried for so long. "Mythos," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "I'm not leaving again, not this time." The Wolf didn't respond with words. Instead, he stepped back, his body easing into a stance that seemed both ancient and eternal. For a moment, Anna stood there, unsure of what to do, unsure of what came next. And then, without warning, Mythos turned, his fur gleaming in the moonlight, and began to walk toward the edge of the clearing. For a second, Anna hesitated. But the forest had never been one to ask questions. It was a place of instinct, of knowing, of unspoken language. And so, without thinking, Anna followed. The path they took was not a well-trodden one. It wound through the forest in a way that seemed to bend time itself, like the trees themselves were guiding her, as though the very earth was telling her to follow where Mythos led. The silence between them was not uncomfortable. It was natural, familiar. She didn't know where he was leading her, but she knew she didn't need to. She had followed this path before, years ago, and it had always led her back to something greater. This time, it would be no different. The deeper they walked into the forest, the more Anna realized how little she knew about the true depth of the world around her. The forest was not just a place, it was a living thing, its heart beating in rhythm with her own. The trees were the keepers of secrets, the wind was a messenger, and the earth beneath her feet was a foundation that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless lives. And she, Anna, was a part of it, always had been, always would be. As they walked together, Anna felt the final threads of separation slip away, the years between her and Mythos fading into a distant memory. The world beyond the forest, with its expectations and distractions, felt farther and farther from her heart. This was where she belonged. This was home. They reached a small clearing, the air thick with the fragrance of wildflowers, the ground soft beneath her feet. And there, standing in the center, was an ancient oak tree, its trunk wide and gnarled with age, its branches reaching high toward the sky. Mythos stopped in front of it and turned to Anna. Without words, he gazed at her. And she knew this was the heart of the forest. This was where their bond had been forged and where it would remain. Forever. Anna smiled, tears still falling, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of understanding, of peace. For she was no longer a girl who wandered lost in the world. She was a part of something greater. Something eternal. And the forest, her forest, had never let her go. As the final echoes of this story linger, I want to leave you with something powerful to take with you, just as Anna found her way back to what she thought she had lost. So, too, can we all return to the things that matter most? The bonds that define us, the places that hold our memories, and the quiet moments where we find our true selves. They're not lost, not forgotten. They're waiting, always. So, I ask you, what have you left behind? What's calling you back? The forest, the Volf, the connection. It's all here, within you. And just like Anna, you can choose to listen. The journey doesn't end here. It never truly does. Will you answer the call?